Stand up right now and apologize to my son for your sabotage or clean out your desk." Harold Morrison's voice cut through the boardroom like a blade, his finger pointing directly at me across that mahogany table. The 14 board members and senior staff sat in dead silence, waiting for my response. Wesley Morrison, Harold's 30-year-old son and our newly promoted VP of Operations, smirked from his chair beside the executive team. "My name is Roy Lawson. I'm 47 years old, and that moment proved my 22 years as Senior Operations Manager at Titan Aerospace Systems meant nothing to the Morrison family. So let me back up and tell you how this whole mess started 8 months ago. Back then, I was running operations with a team of 15 solid engineers and technicians here in Colorado Springs. We specialized in aerospace manufacturing for defense contracts, and I knew every bolt, every specification, every safety protocol by heart. After serving 15 years as an Air Force Master Sergeant and working my way up from the shop floor, I'd earned respect through actual work, not family connections. My wife Linda always said I brought too much of the military home with me, but in aerospace defense work, that attention to detail keeps people alive. She understood that when our son Mason decided to follow in my footsteps and join the Air Force as a crew chief. Then Harold hired his son Wesley. First day on the job, Wesley rolled up in a brand new Tesla Model X, wearing a custom suit that cost more than most of my guys made in a month. He had an MBA from Wharton and exactly 0 real-world aerospace experience. According to Harold, Wesley was there to modernize our operations and bring innovative cost management to an aging workforce. Red flag number 1. But I figured every boss's kid deserves a chance to prove themselves. "Roy, you'll be mentoring Wesley," Harold announced during our department meeting. "Show him our processes. He's got some fresh ideas about optimizing efficiency." Wesley's first fresh idea was cutting our materials testing protocols by 50% to accelerate production schedules. When I explained that aerospace contracts require specific safety certifications, he waved me off. "Look, Roy, I understand you're comfortable with traditional methods, but we need to embrace lean manufacturing principles. My father expects measurable improvements, not status quo thinking." That's when I realized we had a serious problem. This wasn't just nepotism. This was dangerous nepotism applied to aircraft component manufacturing. Now, here's where things get personal. My son Mason is serving as an Air Force crew chief on C-13Es right now, stationed at Little Rock Air Force Base. He's the guy who signs off on whether those birds are safe to fly. When Mason calls home every Sunday, he tells us about the responsibility he feels for every aircraft that leaves the ground with his signature on the maintenance logs. So when some MBA kid starts talking about cutting corners on aircraft parts, it's not just about business for me. It's about bringing my boy home alive and making sure every other parent's kid comes home safe too. The real trouble started 2 months after Wesley joined when we landed the Falcon Defense Systems contract, worth $285 million over 40 years. It was the biggest deal in our company's 26-year history. The contract specified manufacturing engine mounting brackets using Inconel 718 superalloy with specific heat treatment requirements and stress testing standards. Wesley was assigned to lead the cost analysis phase, while I handled technical specifications. His initial reports showed production costs that would save $18 million across the entire contract duration. When I questioned the numbers, he got defensive. "Maybe you're not seeing the optimization opportunities here, Roy. I've identified several process improvements that could increase our profit margins by 8% while maintaining quality standards." So I took his report home that night and went through it line by line. Linda was watching her evening shows, and I spread the paperwork across our kitchen table while she brought me coffee. She could tell something was bothering me. "Another one of Wesley's brilliant ideas," she asked. What I found in that report made my blood run cold. Wesley had systematically replaced Inconel 718 specifications with standard steel alloy, eliminated heat treatment cycles, and reduced stress testing from 3 samples per batch to 1 sample per production run. These weren't optimizations. They were fundamental alterations that would produce engine mounting brackets 58% weaker than contract requirements. "Wesley, these changes violate basic metallurgy principles. Steel alloy can't provide the heat resistance that Inconel delivers at high temperatures. Engines will fail if this equipment can't handle the stress loads." That's your interpretation. My analysis shows steel can meet performance requirements at significant cost savings. My father agrees we need to think strategically about profit margins. I scheduled an emergency meeting with Harold the next morning. Roy, I appreciate your concerns, but Wesley has identified legitimate opportunities for improvement. His cost projections show we can increase profit margins by 8% while meeting all technical specifications. I spread the engineering reports across his desk. Harold, these aren't improvements. These are material substitutions that will fail FAA inspection and violate federal contract terms. We'll face criminal fraud charges if we submit equipment that doesn't match approved specifications. Harold leaned back in his leather chair. The same dismissive posture I'd seen 100 times before when dealing with military procurement officers who thought they knew better than the people actually building the equipment. I think you're being overly conservative. Wesley has advanced business training from one of the top MBA programs in the country. He understands strategic optimization better than traditional approaches. Look, Harold, I don't care what school he went to. Inconel 718 maintains structural integrity at 1300 Berry for red, while standard steel starts losing strength at 800 Berry for red. The tensile strength of Inconel is 180,000 psi. Steel alloy tops out at 75,000 psi. No MBA program changes basic physics. Harold's expression hardened. Roy, I'm going to say this once. Wesley represents the future direction of this company. If you can't adapt to new methodologies, then perhaps it's time to consider whether you're the right fit for our evolving organization. The threat was clear. Accept Wesley's dangerous modifications or find another job. At 47, with a mortgage and Linda's part-time teaching job barely covering our expenses, starting over wasn't exactly appealing. But neither was signing my name to equipment that could kill pilots. Over the following 3 months, things escalated rapidly. Wesley started attending my engineering meetings uninvited, contradicting my technical decisions with cost-saving alternatives. He'd send emails to our Pentagon procurement contacts with revised specifications, copying me as if I'd approved the changes. When federal inspectors asked technical questions during site visits, Wesley would defer to me, then later blame any confusion on my unclear communication style. 3 of my best engineers, Gary Fletcher, Luis Martinez, and Paul Stevens, requested transfers to other departments. Not because they'd lost confidence in my abilities, but because Wesley had made it clear that association with resistant personnel would impact their career advancement opportunities. Gary pulled me aside one afternoon after Wesley had publicly questioned his testing procedures in front of the whole team. Roy, I've got 3 kids and a wife who just went back to school. I can't afford to be on Harold's bad side, but I also can't put my name on equipment that's going to fail inspection. I understand, Gary. Do what you need to do. My team shrank from 15 engineers to 12, while Wesley's influence expanded throughout the organization. Harold started including him in board meetings, introducing him as the future of Titan Aerospace's innovative approach to manufacturing. The breaking point came during preparation for the major FAA compliance review scheduled for November 18th. I'd spent 2 weeks documenting why Wesley's material substitutions would compromise safety and violate contract specifications. Linda found me at the kitchen table at midnight, surrounded by technical manuals and stress analysis reports. You're going to make yourself sick over this, she said, rubbing my shoulders. Maybe it's time to let someone else fight this battle. I can't, Lynn. Mason's out there flying aircraft with components that could come from companies just like ours. If I don't fight for safety standards here, who will? The night before our presentation, I was working late when I heard voices from the main conference room. I recognized Harold's voice immediately, but it was what I heard next that changed everything. Dad, what happens if the FAA asks technical questions I can't answer tomorrow? Don't worry, Wesley. I've already briefed the procurement team that Roy has been resistant to efficiency improvements. If there are any technical issues during the presentation, we'll frame them as his failure to provide adequate documentation support. I stopped outside the conference room door and activated my phone's recording function. My hands were shaking, but I kept the phone steady. But what if they want to see the original engineering specifications? Roy's original specifications reflect outdated, overly conservative approaches that would make us non-competitive. Your analysis demonstrates we can meet all critical requirements while improving profitability. Trust me, after tomorrow's presentation, you'll be leading this entire department. That conversation changed everything. This wasn't incompetence or even standard corporate politics. This was deliberate fraud, and they were planning to destroy my career to cover their tracks. Time to fight back. I started documenting everything the next morning. Every email, every meeting, every conversation. I kept backup copies of all original engineering reports and compared them with Wesley's modified versions. The differences were staggering. He'd gone through and changed every spec we had, eliminated crucial safety tests, and reduced inspection requirements across 19 different contract items. The most dangerous change involved the engine mounting brackets. My original specifications called for Inconel 708 with Rockwell hardness of 35 to 40 HRC after heat treatment requirements. Wesley's steel would provide approximately 58% less stress resistance than required Inconel components. Pilots would die if this equipment failed in flight, including potentially my son Mason. But I needed more than technical documentation. I needed proof of criminal intent, and I needed allies who understood what was really at stake. That's when Earl Rodriguez approached me. Earl wasn't just any engineer. He was our union rep and a former Navy machinist who'd worked his way up from the shop floor just like me. We'd shared plenty of stories over the years about military service, and he understood the responsibility that comes with building equipment for people who put their lives on the line. "Roy, we need to talk, not here at the office. Can you meet me at Murphy's Diner on Highway 24 tonight at 8? Murphy's was a 24-hour truck stop 15 miles from the office, the kind of place where truckers and shift workers grabbed coffee and meals at all hours. Earl was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back corner booth with a folder and a concerned expression that reminded me of briefings before difficult missions. "We have a serious problem," he said without preamble. "Harold's been monitoring your computer activity, your emails, your phone calls from the office. He's been building a surveillance file on you for the past 2 months." Earl opened the folder and showed me activity logs that made my stomach drop. Every document I'd accessed, every email I'd sent, every phone call I'd made for my office extension, all logged and tracked with the kind of detail that would make the NSA proud. How is this legal? Technically, company equipment allows for monitoring, but here's the concerning part. He turned to another page. Brianna Morrison has been recording conversations throughout the building. Not just casual workplace discussions, formal meetings, private phone calls, confidential discussions with other employees. The page showed a directory of audio files organized by date and participant names. My name appeared in dozens of entries, some dating back months before I'd even started questioning Wesley's modifications. This goes beyond normal corporate surveillance, Roy. Brianna's been systematically collecting information on anyone Harold considers a potential threat, including Colonel Rita Sullivan, our primary board member. I knew Rita from the monthly board meetings. She was a straight shooter who asked tough questions about our technical capabilities and contract performance. If Harold was gathering information on her, this conspiracy went much deeper than just covering for Wesley's incompetence. What kind of information on Rita? Financial records, private communications, details about her military pension. Harold's been building leverage files on the entire board of directors. I stared at the surveillance data. This wasn't just nepotism or fraud. This was systematic corporate espionage designed to maintain control through blackmail and intimidation. Earl, why are you showing me this? Because you're not the first target. Over the past 3 years, Harold has systematically pushed out 4 other senior managers who questioned his decisions. He replaces experienced personnel with family loyalists, then uses surveillance data to control anyone who objects to his methods. Earl's weathered hands traced through the files as he explained Harold's pattern. Thomas Wheeler from Quality Control was forced out after Harold discovered personal financial problems and threatened to report them to federal security clearance authorities. Sarah Chen from Procurement quit after Brianna recorded her complaining about Wesley's inexperience. Then Harold threatened to sue her for creating a hostile work environment. What happened to the others? Paul Martinez from Engineering and Jennifer Walsh from Contracts. Both had 20-plus years experience. Both started asking questions about cost overruns and specification changes. Within 6 months, Harold found reasons to terminate them for performance issues. None of them could find work elsewhere in the aerospace industry afterward. Earl closed the folder. Harold doesn't just fire people who oppose him. He destroys their careers and ensures they can't find work elsewhere. But you're different, Roy. You've got military connections, technical credibility, and most importantly, you've got documented evidence of actual criminal activity. That's when Earl told me about Colonel Rita Sullivan's background. She wasn't just our biggest board member. She was a former Air Force procurement officer with 18 years' experience in defense contract oversight, including time spent at the Pentagon working directly with companies like ours. More importantly, she maintained active security clearances and ongoing relationships throughout the military procurement system. Rita has been asking questions about our recent performance metrics. She's noticed discrepancies between reported costs and actual deliverables. I think she suspects something is wrong, but she doesn't have concrete evidence. Can you arrange a meeting? Already done, tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Riverside Coffee downtown. She thinks you're briefing her on technical specifications for her quarterly investment review. I drove home that night with my head spinning. Linda was waiting up for me, which she always did when I worked late. She took one look at my face and poured 2 cups of coffee without asking. It's worse than you thought, isn't it? I told her everything, the surveillance, the conspiracy, Harold's systematic destruction of anyone who opposed him. Linda listened without interruption, the way she had during my worst days transitioning from military to civilian life. So what are you going to do? Fight back? But Lynn, this could get ugly. Harold has resources, connections, and he's willing to destroy people to protect Wesley and his operation. She reached across and took my hand. Roy, Mason called while you were out. His unit's getting new aircraft next month. He was excited because the maintenance requirements are more complex, more responsibility. You think I'm going to let some spoiled rich kid put my son at risk because he wants to save money on parts? That settled it. Harold's operation was more sophisticated and dangerous than I'd realized, but now I had allies who understood what was really at stake. Colonel Rita Sullivan wasn't what I expected. At 56, she looked more like a university administrator than a major aerospace industry board member. But when she studied my engineering documentation at Riverside Coffee the next afternoon, her questions revealed the sharp mind of someone who understood both Pentagon procurement and corporate fraud. Roy, these material substitutions aren't just cost-cutting measures. They're systematic contract violations that could result in federal criminal charges. She compared Wesley's modified specifications with my original reports, making notes in margins with the precision of someone who'd spent years reviewing similar documents for the government. If these altered specifications were submitted to FAA procurement, we're looking at conspiracy to defraud the government, violations of the False Claims Act, and potentially criminal endangerment charges if any equipment failures resulted in casualties. Rita pulled out her own folder. I maintain active relationships throughout Pentagon procurement. More importantly, I've been monitoring concerning trends in this company's performance metrics for the past 6 months. She handed me a financial analysis that looked like something from a federal audit. Delivery schedules have slipped 19% since Wesley joined the organization. Quality control reports show increasing deviation from contract specifications. Most troubling, our profit margins have increased while our actual material costs should be rising due to inflation. The numbers were damning. Rita had been tracking discrepancies that I'd been too focused on technical issues to notice. You think Harold's been manipulating financial reports beyond just the Falcon contract. I think this fraud extends much deeper than material substitutions on a single contract. She pointed to specific numbers that made my stomach sink. Wesley's efficiency improvements have supposedly saved $18 million across 6 different Pentagon contracts over the past 4 months. That level of cost reduction is impossible without compromising quality or violating specifications. No legitimate engineering improvements could generate those savings without fundamental changes to materials, processes, or safety protocols. Harold and Wesley weren't just defrauding one contract. They were running a systematic operation across multiple government deals. Rita, what do you need from me? Complete documentation of all specification changes, recorded evidence of criminal intent, and testimony from other employees who've witnessed this fraud. Can you provide those? I thought about the recording from the conference room, Earl's surveillance files, and the technical documentation I'd been compiling. I have recorded conversations between Harold and Wesley planning to blame me for their specification violations. Earl has documented their surveillance operation, but we'll need more than just my word against theirs. Leave that to me. I have contacts who can arrange for an unannounced FAA compliance audit, but we need to be prepared for Harold's counterattack. He's going to use every piece of surveillance data and leverage he has to destroy anyone who threatens his operation. Rita's plan was straightforward but risky. She'd contact her Pentagon procurement friends and request an immediate compliance audit of the Falcon contract. Federal investigators would discover the specification violations and demand explanations. When Harold tried to blame me, we'd present evidence that destroyed their credibility completely. The timing was critical. Harold planned to announce Wesley's promotion to Chief Engineering Officer at next Tuesday's board meeting. That's when he'd also announce my reassignment to advisory status corporate speak for forced retirement with reduced benefits. Let him make his move. Let Wesley present his fraudulent specifications in front of the entire board. Then we'll present evidence that destroys their credibility completely. I spent the weekend preparing. Earl provided copies of all surveillance logs and audio recordings Brianna had collected. I compiled side-by-side comparisons of original specifications versus Wesley's modifications for all 19 affected contract items. Most damaging was the recording of Harold and Wesley planning to frame me for their specification violations. Linda helped me organize everything, her teacher's instincts for documentation proving invaluable. "You know," she said, reviewing the evidence, "this reminds me of when I had to report a principal for falsifying test scores. The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence, it was accepting that people I trusted were willing to lie to protect themselves." Monday morning, Harold seemed unusually confident. He spent the day meeting privately with board members, presumably building support for Wesley's promotion. Brianna shadowed me constantly, attending meetings I hadn't invited her to, taking notes on every conversation. Around 3 p.m., Brianna approached me with a fake smile that reminded me of politicians I dealt with during Pentagon briefings. "Roy, my grandfather wants to see you in his office." He mentioned something about finalizing transition plans. I walked into Harold's office to find him with Wesley and a man I didn't recognize wearing an FAA ID badge. My heart pounded, but I kept my expression neutral. This wasn't part of Rita's plan. The audit wasn't supposed to start until after Tuesday's board meeting. "Roy, this is Inspector Williams from FAA Compliance Oversight. He has questions about our Falcon contract specifications." Inspector Williams pulled out a folder that looked suspiciously thick for a routine inquiry. "Mr. Lawson, we've received reports of potential specification irregularities in your Falcon contract submissions. Several items don't match our original procurement requirements. Can you explain these discrepancies?" I looked at the documents. They were Wesley's modified specifications with my name listed as the reviewing engineer. Harold and Wesley had moved faster than we anticipated, trying to get me on record accepting responsibility before Rita could arrange her audit. "Inspector, I never approved these specifications. These modifications violate both safety standards and contract requirements." Wesley jumped in immediately. "Roy, we discussed these efficiency improvements in multiple engineering review meetings. You signed off on all optimization measures during our collaborative sessions." "That's completely false. I specifically documented why these modifications would compromise equipment integrity and pilot safety." Harold leaned forward with practiced concern. "Inspector Williams, I believe we have a communication breakdown here. Roy has been resistant to modernization efforts, and there seems to be confusion about which specifications represent our official position." Inspector Williams looked between us carefully. "Who has final authority over engineering specifications in this company?" "Roy is our senior operations manager," Harold said smoothly. "All technical decisions require his approval and signature." Perfect trap. Either I accepted responsibility for Wesley's dangerous modifications, or I appeared incompetent before a federal inspector. Harold thought he'd cornered me completely. But I'd spent 15 years learning how to handle pressure situations, starting with combat engineering in Afghanistan, where mistakes got people killed. You don't survive military procurement oversight without learning when to hold your ground. "Inspector Williams, I'd like to request a formal review of all engineering documentation. I believe there have been unauthorized changes to approved specifications, and I have evidence that proves systematic fraud." Tuesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp Colorado weather that reminded me why Linda and I had chosen to build our life here. The FAA audit team consisted of 4 technical specialists and 2 criminal investigators. They set up in our main conference room while employees whispered nervously throughout the building. At 10 a.m., Harold called the emergency board meeting that would determine everyone's fate. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing an unfortunate situation created by miscommunication and resistance to necessary modernization efforts." Harold stood at the head of the boardroom table, projecting confidence despite the federal investigation happening down the hall. "Wesley Morrison has done exceptional work optimizing our processes and identifying cost savings across multiple contracts. Unfortunately, some senior staff have been resistant to these improvements." Wesley beamed from his seat beside the executive team, still believing his father could control the narrative. "Before we discuss Wesley's promotion to Chief Engineering Officer, I want to address the federal investigation. This audit resulted from complaints by a disgruntled employee who disagreed with management decisions." Rita spoke from across the table. "Harold, are you referring to Roy Lawson's technical concerns about specification violations?" I'm referring to Roy's inability to adapt to modern engineering practices and his attempts to undermine Wesley's legitimate improvements. Those aren't improvements, I said, standing up. They're dangerous modifications that violate federal contract terms and safety requirements. I connected my tablet to the room's display system. I believe this evidence will clarify the actual situation. What I showed them was devastating. Side-by-side comparisons of original specifications versus Wesley's modifications. Material strength reductions from 180,000 psi Inconel to 75,000 psi steel. Eliminated safety tests. Compromised stress resistance standards that would have resulted in component failures at operational temperatures. These modifications were made without my approval and submitted to FAA procurement under my name as reviewing engineer. Wesley jumped up, his face flushed. Those are preliminary efficiency studies. Roy approved all final optimizations after our engineering reviews. Actually, I said, activating my phone's audio player, that's not what you told your father. Wesley's voice filled the room. Dad, what happens if the FAA asks technical questions I can't answer? Then Harold's unmistakable voice. Don't worry, Wesley. I've already briefed them that Roy has been resistant to efficiency improvements. If there are technical issues, we'll frame them as his failure to provide adequate support. The room went completely silent. Board members stared at Harold and Wesley in shock while Brianna went pale in her chair. Those recordings are illegal and taken out of context, Harold said, his composure finally cracking. No, said a voice from the back of the room. They're evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. Inspector Williams walked in with 2 federal agents. We've completed our preliminary review. Mr. Harold Morrison, Mr. Wesley Morrison, and Ms. Brianna Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the United States government. What happened next was swift and decisive. Federal agents secured all company computers and phones. Harold and Wesley were handcuffed and escorted out, while Brianna finally understood that family connections couldn't protect her from federal prosecutors. The charges were serious. Conspiracy to defraud the government, falsifying federal contract specifications, and violations of the False Claims Act. The potential penalties included up to 15 years in federal prison and millions in fines. Rita approached me as the agents finished collecting evidence. The board will need immediate leadership for the engineering department. Are you interested in the position you should have had years ago? 6 weeks later, I was sitting in what used to be Harold's office, reviewing specifications for upgraded stress testing equipment. The transition had been challenging but necessary. The Falcon contract was renegotiated with proper materials and realistic safety margins. Our engineering team expanded from 12 to 18 engineers, all hired based on competence rather than family connections. The investigation uncovered the full extent of the fraud. Harold had been systematically altering specifications across 6 different defense contracts over 14 months, claiming $18 million in fraudulent cost savings while putting military personnel at risk. Harold pled guilty to federal fraud charges and received 4 years in federal prison plus $5.2 million in fines and restitution. Wesley was banned from government contracting permanently and faced multiple civil lawsuits from affected military units. Brianna lost her security clearance and accepted a plea deal for cooperation in exchange for 3 years probation. The real victory wasn't their punishment. It was rebuilding trust with FAA procurement and proving that experienced engineering judgment matters more than MBA cost optimization theories. Errol got promoted to senior union representative and implemented comprehensive worker protection protocols. We established a veteran preference hiring policy that gives priority to military veterans in technical positions. Rita joined our board as chairman, ensuring proper executive oversight and maintaining her Pentagon connections. Most importantly, we now hire people who understand that aircraft components aren't about profit margins. They're about bringing pilots home alive. Every time I sign off on a specification, now I think about my son Mason working on those C-13s at Little Rock. Last Sunday when he called, he told Linda and me about a maintenance issue his team caught that could have caused an engine failure. The parts we build here might be the difference between his aircraft making it back to base or not. The aerospace industry is full of young MBAs who think they can optimize safety out of the equation. They don't understand that when you're building equipment for the military, you're not just dealing with numbers on a spreadsheet. You're dealing with somebody's son or daughter who's counting on that equipment to work when their life depends on it. Experience beats education when lives depend on your work. The classroom teaches you theories, but the real world teaches you consequences. When some kid fresh out of business school starts talking about cutting corners on safety protocols, Remember that every shortcut they take is a risk they're forcing someone else to bear. Harold thought family connections and surveillance files could overcome basic physics and federal law. Wesley thought an MBA could substitute for 22 years of hands-on engineering experience. They were both wrong. In the end, the truth has a way of coming out. Inconel is stronger than steel. Experience matters more than connections, and integrity beats corruption every time as long as you're willing to fight for it. That's my story. Roy Lawson, Senior Vice President of Engineering, Titan Aerospace Systems, still here, still fighting for quality over shortcuts, still making sure our equipment works when it matters most. And every day, I'm grateful that my son Mason gets to fly aircraft built by people who understand that safety isn't negotiable. The Morrison family learned that the hard way. Some lessons cost more than others. Sometimes the biggest battles aren't fought in boardrooms or courtrooms. They're fought by ordinary people who refuse to let dangerous shortcuts become someone else's tragedy. When you've got skin in the game and know what's really at stake, no amount of money or connections can make you compromise on what keeps people alive.